Hey guys, what is going on? Kevin here from XL Aquatics, here to provide another swim video. Before we get started, just want to remind everyone, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our content. That way, as videos are released, you will be notified. So today's video is a little bit different than what we've been releasing the past couple weeks. We've been doing a lot of technical analysis as well as some instructional videos. But today we're going to talk a little bit about dryland training for swimmers. Now before we get started, just want to throw a couple things out there. First and foremost, I consider myself a swim coach, right? I am not a strength and conditioning coach. I am not a dryland expert. So what I have done, and the intention of this presentation that we're going to go over momentarily, is first and foremost informational, right? I've compiled resources. I've spoken to a couple coaches who I've worked with in the past, coaches who have coached me in the past, based off of different ideas and theories and certainly applications from a swimming standpoint in terms of dryland training, right? That's number one. Number two, again, since these are many, can be kind of classified as ideas and even somewhat opinions, by all means, take whatever you can get from this presentation. Okay, I'm not saying that one type of training is certainly going to definitely be better than another. Have some research in here. We certainly reference quite a bit of scientific articles, theories, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, during this quarantine, while the pools are shut down, certainly doing something is going to be better than nothing at all. We're just looking to make it as effective as possible based on whatever limitations we have. So without further ado, here's the video. Looking forward to getting you guys' feedback on it, and we'll see you on the other side. So first here, dryland training for swimming, exploring effective options to replace the pool. All right. So when looking at a dryland program, one that right now we're looking to replace the pool as opposed to supplement the pool, we want to try and figure out which factors play a role when exploring the program. So first and foremost, in the research that I've done, we definitely want to understand what our objective is when incorporating dryland training to replace swimming. Okay, now that's key there, replacing swimming. Many dryland programs, even strength and conditioning programs, are created to help supplement. All right, we're in a different situation right now. One, as we've heard a lot on the news, it's unprecedented, which means that we want to try and explore any and all options to make the most of the current situation. Okay, so just following supplemental programs, while that's better than nothing, I think there's certainly ways that we can tweak conventional programming to fit our needs right now. Number two, what we want to look at is certainly understanding the demands of swimming and what research shows provides the greatest impact with a realistic execution. So again, we're replacing swimming. We want to understand the sport of swimming and its requirements as best as we can when creating a replaceable program. All right. Number three, we want to understand what our options are. Okay, that includes access to equipment, your physical attributes as an athlete, so on and so forth. Again, creativity here is key, so really making the most with little is going to be the primary goal. And fourth kind of key point we're going to cover here is just theoretically how we would structure a workout. Again, this would be my opinion, so certainly any ideas you can take from it, go for it. All right, so moving forward, our objective. All right, so when looking at kind of the overall dryland component of replacing swimming, our goal is to develop and improve strength and fitness as it relates to swimming from a neuromuscular standpoint. All right, this can be summed up in two words, which is functional training. All right, functional training. So clearly, what we're trying to do is we're trying to enhance, improve, maintain our level of fitness as it relates to swimming. So any exercises that we do, that we explore, any movements that we explore are going to fit this mold, okay? Functional to swimming. So what guiding principles will we use when determining functional movements? All right. Now, we've referenced everything that we've gathered information from at the end of this presentation, but starting out, we're going to give a shout out to Vern Gambetta here. You can look up Vern Gambetta. He is a consultant does a lot of work with many different sports, including swimming specifically, based on supplemental and for swimming dryland programming that surrounds the functional movement mentality. Okay, so his quotation here: "I defy you to show me anything you do in swimming in which you only use one single muscle and a single joint movement in one plane." Basically meaning, and we talk about this a lot in our practices, right? Everything you do is connected. It's a kinetic chain. So trying to isolate too much when we're trying to replace swimming, again, we're not looking to supplement, we're looking to replace. Isolation is not going to be nearly as effective as figuring out ways to move our body fully that will engage muscles kinetically to help support the different movements that will replicate swimming as best we can. Okay? So our objective in terms of functional training, number one, we're going to train movements and not just muscles. All right? You can do a lot of different muscular exercises. When you're supplementing training, strength and conditioning is a great example of that. We really target specific muscles. Here we're going to be looking at full functioning movements. Okay. Number two, the Serape Effect, an emphasis on core and shoulder movements. Vern Gambetta talks a lot about those two areas, our core and our shoulders, being the cornerstone of functional movement training. And then number three, multiple planes at play. We're going to be going over just kind of the different planes of our body, and then certainly or trying to incorporate as many planes as possible when we choose different exercises. All right. So training movements. All right. Basically, when we're looking at different kinds of training movements, we want to look at, from an athletic standpoint, what those movements will encompass. Okay, so number one, we always want to look at coordination. All right, when you're looking at swimming or any other sport, there's going to be a coordination component involved. All right, so we're training kind of the neurological side, right, as coordinated as we can be. We still want to challenge that aspect with our dryland training. Number two, our balance, right, in swimming. It's a lot of balance, right? You're a body suspended in a fluid, all right? You're going to be recruiting muscles that you don't even realize, okay? So trying to make sure that we're recruiting as many muscles as possible within a dryland program or dryland exercise broken down piece by piece is certainly important. Number three, strength. All right, getting our muscles, the same muscles that we use in the pool, stronger, activating the right muscles, right? We have an opportunity right now, even though we're not in the pool, to improve the strength component of the muscles that we use in the pool day in and day out. Number four, flexibility and mobility. Obviously, our range of motion in swimming is important. We want to focus on movements and exercises that also value range of motion and mobility. Fifth and final, maximizing athletic potential. Okay, everyone's a little bit different. Everyone has certain strengths, certain weaknesses. Okay, one of the reasons why I think not just having a blanket template program throwing out there, this is an opportunity for all of us to work on different areas that we are not very good at. Me as an example, obviously haven't been able to get to the gym the past couple weeks, so making the most of my own athletic attributes or lack thereof. I've been working actually on pistol squats, right? Single leg squats, something I am terrible at, right? But now I have a little more time. I can incorporate that into different exercise routines that I've been doing, working on my weaknesses. Definitely an opportunity here. So when we choose exercises, we want to target obviously different movements and whatnot that relate to swimming, but can even relate to your weaknesses in the pool. Okay, so our big idea here: certain exercises can be sport specific, but not very functional with how it relates to improvement within the sport. There's a difference between strength specific versus our dryland functional training. So next, the Serape Effect. This is something that I had actually read about back in 2012. Didn't really look into it too much. So it was really cool over the past couple weeks being able to research it. So the big idea here is, since the anatomical structure of the body is in diagonal rotational patterns and performance occurs in diagonal rotational patterns, the most effective movements when training the body are in diagonal rotational patterns. Okay? Having the past few days even to kind of think about this, right? If we think about our freestyle swimming, because many of our athletes are triathletes, we stick to freestyle here. Think about all the rotational movements in swimming, all right? Think about our hip-driven freestyle. We talk about driving, turning, right? Turning with the hips. We turn to breathe. We turn our head muscles to breathe, or our neck muscles to breathe, excuse me. Our shoulders, our rotation. Okay, we rotate. Anywhere we rotate, we're going to catch the water, pivot at the elbow. There's a lot of rotation going on. Okay, so thinking about the Serape effect, thinking about dry land, on land movements, okay, that encompass rotational movements, I think will be huge. And again, Vern Gambetta talks a lot about this in the different articles I've read, one of the books that he had published. But again, we want to think about rotational movements when choosing exercises. Next, why core and shoulder movements, okay? Now again, the body is essentially a kinetic chain, okay? It's very difficult and non-applicable to try and isolate just one muscle or even small muscular group. There's a lot of balancing that is always going on, particularly in swimming, okay? So in relation to swimming, pelvic engine over the spinal engine, right? Back in the 80s, there was a lot of research done regarding the spinal engine where energy is driven through the spine, essentially, right? We want to have our movements focused on the spine. However, Vern Gambetta talks a lot about the pelvic engine from the core, the hips, hip mobility. You think about swimming, again, we drive with the hips. We talk a lot about core-driven freestyle. That is why our dryland training, we want to really focus on the core. And again, discussing my point from earlier, if we just focus on bands, a lot of band exercises limit our rotation, limit our ability to engage our core from an applicable standpoint, okay? Finally, strength and range of motion exercises with the shoulders should be used, okay? We think about swimming, we think about our range of motion, what we're doing with our arms, our shoulders while we're swimming. So as much as we can incorporate shoulder movements, again, using the Serape effect, rotational diagonal movements, will certainly benefit us. Okay? Moving forward, lastly, I believe, multiple planes at play. Okay? Not going to lie, certainly had to look a lot of this up. My biochemistry or my biomechanical physics in terms of how it relates to anatomy is a little bit rusty since I haven't taken a biology class since 9th grade. However, I've created a link to a video that describes this probably much better than I will. So we have the sagittal, coronal, transverse, and then mid-sagittal planes, okay? So basically, sagittal, all right, separates down the middle, our left from our right, okay? Our coronal plane separates front to back. So think about if I drive down center of my head, slice through. Our transverse plane focuses on the upper half and lower half. Okay, and the mid-sagittal really talks about if I'm separating the left and the right equally as opposed to just at the shoulder, right, anywhere besides our mid-plane, okay, or our midline. All right, when we think about exercises, we want to think about movements in sports and incorporate multiple planes of play. All right, this is all about our functional training. And again, Vern Gambetta is huge on this. All right, any exercises that we can engage multiple planes of play are going to be more effective, more beneficial for us as athletes. All right. Second topic, all right, is understanding swimming. Okay, it's great to understand guiding principles in terms of creating a dryland program, choosing dryland exercises, but also understanding swimming is going to be huge, right? The better we can understand the sport, the easier it is to relate certain exercises and how they pertain to swimming in terms of replacing our time in the pool, okay? So number one, swimming is rhythmic in nature, okay? So trying to use and have certain exercises that are rhythmic will certainly be beneficial. Okay, we do a lot of, recently with our triathletes, a lot of tempo trainer work, right, to really hone in on the rhythm in swimming. So rhythm in the exercises will relate to the rhythm in swimming. Number two, swimming is full body. I already talked a lot about functional movements, multiple planes, okay. The more we can engage our whole body with specific exercises, the better off we are going to be and the more challenged we will be, okay. Third, swimming at its core is core-driven. That's an intentional pun. That's why the winky face is there. But it is true, okay? We are pelvic driven in terms of we talked a lot about before, spinal versus pelvic, and Vern Gambetta's thoughts on that. We want to focus any and all exercises have to have some core component, some challenge with the core, Okay, stability, stability, stability. Next, swimming requires coordination with the kinesthetic awareness and muscular balance. Okay, we just talked about core, stability, muscular balance. When we swim, it's very difficult a lot of times to know what we're doing. There's a lot going on at one time. So choosing exercises, choosing movements that challenge us from a coordination standpoint, I think will be huge. All right, and there is going to be more application than we realize when trying to pick exercises that you may have to do at a slower rate before you pick up the pace. Will help us in terms of coordination, which is never a bad thing when trying to improve our swimming. Last but not least, swimming requires a high degree of flexibility and mobility. Okay, so choosing exercises that incorporate different ranges of motion, all right, that are going to challenge our flexibility a little bit, challenge our mobility, again, will help relate to swimming. All right, big idea. We want to incorporate as many, if not all, these elements into our dryland training. All right, so choosing different exercises that pick on each of these components, right, or encompass all of them potentially, will certainly help us the most. All right, so part 3 of our presentation here. All right, we want to look at all of our options. All right, we have to ask ourselves certain questions. Number 1, where are you able to train? All right, number 2, what equipment do we have access to? Number 3, where are you in your athletic journey as an individual? And number 4, what motivates you when working out? Okay, so starting with where can you train? All right, different exercises are going to have different requirements. So we want to first look at our environment that we're able to train in. Okay, indoor versus outdoor. All right, if you're indoors, right, there are going to be certain limitations and certain advantages, right? It's going to be easier indoors to plug something into the TV, have something guiding you potentially, connect with your friends remotely, so on and so forth. Outdoors, a little bit of fresh air. You're going to have a little bit more options in terms of how much noise you can potentially make when you're outdoors. First floor and basement versus second floor or above. If you're indoors, personally, I live on the second floor somewhere, which means plyometric exercises are kind of tough. I don't want to be rude to my neighbors, so I choose exercises that make very little to no noise. If you're on the first floor or basement, you may have a little bit more leverage in terms of the different exercises, the noise, so much and so forth that you can choose. Last but not least, space requirements and limitations. How much space around you, swinging your arms, throwing med balls, so on and so forth. We want to make sure we have enough space to do the exercises that we choose. That way we can maximize the effectiveness of our workouts and our training. Second, our equipment. Everyone's going to have slightly different equipment available to them, all right? However, there's one piece of equipment that we will all have, and that's our own body. Okay, so a lot of the exercises, and again, I'm going to give sample ones at the end. Choosing exercises that you can do as body weight is always awesome, and I would say always kind of the go-to. Okay, there's so many different ways to challenge yourself with body weight exercises. It's amazing, and we all can use our bodies, so making the most with little. Starting with our own body. Medicine balls. Medicine balls, if you had to choose one piece of equipment, I would say that would be my go-to. Again, talking about Vern Gambetta. Mark Hetze's another one, consultant for USA Swimming, talks a lot about what you can do with a medicine ball. I think they provide a little bit more range of exercises, challenges, whatnot, and more options to choose from compared to any other piece of equipment. Bands, again, another great one. I certainly love bands. The great thing about bands is you can change the amount of resistance based on where you hold a band. So in terms of resistance training, bands can be awesome for that. Jump rope, we'll talk a little bit at the very end about jump rope, how it can certainly help swimmers, and why it's a great go-to, especially if you have access to the outdoors to practice a little bit of jump roping. Last but not least, weight vest. You can go out buy a weight vest. It'll add a little bit more uniform weight, especially kind of distributing the load if you have certain joint issues and whatnot. Okay, but be creative. Don't be afraid. Go grab a backpack. Anything that you can use to load up, create weight. If you don't have a med ball, you don't have a weight vest. Okay. Besides just our own body, there's many different ways. Okay, be creative. Next kind of point we want to cover, where are you as an athlete? Knowing what you can and cannot do, right? Many of us have had injuries. In the past, we want to make sure that we choose exercises that don't aggravate those injuries. Knowing what your goals are as a swimmer, what your weaknesses are as a swimmer, potentially targeting those weaknesses in our time away from the pool, okay? Making sure that everything we're doing, we are doing safely, all right? Because we're in our own home, most of us, or many of us, will not have, if any of us, to be honest, someone looking over our shoulder, whether it's a strength conditioning coach, personal trainer, obviously we're practicing social distancing, so if you work out outside, you're around other people, staying far enough away, we don't have anyone critiquing our form. So being very, very careful, making sure that we are not overloading our bodies here. All right, we want to be safe when we train. The safer we train, the more we're going to be able to train in the future, the less time we will have to take off. Okay, so the big idea here, everyone is different. Blindly following a specific workout or plan without considering your own needs and limits will basically limit the effectiveness and safety of the training. Okay, last but not least, in terms of this part, our motivation, where you thrive as an athlete, knowing yourself and trying to set yourself up for success during this shutdown is going to be huge. Okay, so knowing yourself, training by yourself versus digitally in a group with options. Okay, there are some athletes out there I know, super motivated. They'll go through, they'll create a workout plan, and they will stick to it by themselves every single day for a certain amount of time and cycle through. That is awesome. Okay, however, some of us, including myself, kind of need some form of interaction. Okay, so there are options out there. Number one, you can work out digitally with other people, right? You can use Zoom, you can use Skype. There's a lot of video technology software out there. Pick a time, pick a day, work out with other people. There are also different programs out there that you can use to either replace or supplement your training. All right, one shout out I want to give right now is the metabolic community in the upstate New York area. I've been a member of the metabolic gyms for 2 years now, a little over 2 years actually. And during this shutdown, they've created an awesome online workout kind of component or group that you can join as a member and you can follow. And realistically for me, I know myself, having that workout that I can turn on in the morning and be guided through the different exercises and then make those modifications and tweaks as I need has been huge. So finding, again, with an accountability aspect and certainly motivational aspect, for me that works, but finding those options for you I think is huge. Number 3, improvement is fun. All right, so when choosing exercises and when choosing whether it's workout plans, programs to follow, try and find things that you'll be able to see improvement on over the next few weeks, even maybe a month or more. Okay, we don't know how long this shutdown is going to last. So picking just random exercises and only doing them once, okay, it's going to be very difficult to see that improvement. If we're able to cycle through different movements, different exercises as they relate, and to see strength gains, improvement gains, mobility gains, personally, I'm a fan of improvement. I love seeing improvement in myself, and I think that will be motivating and over the long term will help increase the effectiveness of your workouts. Last but not least, explore any and all options. I'm sure there are many options out there that I have not covered. Definitely go to Google, figure out different ways that are going to motivate you, know yourself as an athlete, how you work out, when you work out the best versus when you don't work out very effectively, and figure out how to optimize this situation. All right. Final kind of part of this presentation here is a structure. Okay. Again, this is certainly going to be a little bit more opinion-based. Hypothetically, if I were to create a structure, dryland training for our triathletes, for our swimmers out there, this is what I would follow. First and foremost, I would go intervals versus rep counts. Okay, I'm a big fan of intervals. Other programs like Metabolic, they talk about time under tension. I love that. When we go with rep counts, a lot of times it's very easy to get too married to a rep count, and then we can end up varying a lot of different components of the movement in terms of our range of motion, the speed, so on and so forth, just to get through that rep count, especially when we're hurting. So going off of an interval, right? So as an example, if I'm doing bicep curls, right, just as a sample exercise, If I go for 40 seconds, right, of bicep curls, I'm going to be focusing a lot more on my range of motion, the tension that I'm creating, and the muscular engagement versus just hitting a certain number of reps, okay? So my quality of reps within a certain amount of time is going to be more likely, much greater than if I'm just trying to hit a certain bare minimum number, okay? So choosing intervals, again, my opinion, intervals are going to be more effective. Number 2, choosing exercises that follow progressions and regressions and that can be built up from simple to complex, okay? We talked about improvement before, and we also talked about safety. This is a great way to incorporate both, okay? So using basic push-up. Okay, push-ups are an awesome body weight exercise. You don't need anything except a floor to perform a push-up, but there are many different variations to challenge yourself, and there are also many different variations to start with, okay? If you're not able to do a full push-up on the ground, there's more simplistic versions that you can start with, okay? Number 1, you can start angled up against a wall. Okay, that way you're starting to engage the proper muscles, right, without fear of injury, and then eventually moving on to push-ups on the ground from your knees, okay, and then eventually moving on to push-ups, pushing up without the knees, and then down on the knees, or so on and so forth. Many different ways to build that up until eventually you can be like someone who does plyometric push-ups. Shout out to Taylor Nichols, former trainer, or swimmer, excuse me, and he's currently a trainer at Metabolic. I've known him for a couple of years now. You should find him online. Check out the videos of him doing crazy plyometric push-ups. My goals right now for the shutdown, one of them is to be able to do 10% of what Taylor can do. But again, point is, starting out with simplistic exercises and building up is a great way to see improvement and certainly keep things safe. Last but not least, Vern Gambetta talks about 8 to 12 exercises within a workout, so that basically you can cover your bases, all right? Typically, no singular exercise is going to cover all of the principles that we talked about in terms of functional training, right? Multiple planes, different ranges of motion, so on and so forth. So having a gamut of exercises that we can go through multiple times over can help challenge us and meet all of our needs in terms of replacing the pool as best we can. Big idea, though, more than anything, and this is just my opinion, I encourage everyone, ask yourself why. Okay, why are you doing exercises, certain exercises? Why are you choosing them? As much research as you can do, as much as you can educate yourself, I think that will make you so much more of a better athlete and give you a much higher ceiling in terms of your own training. Ask yourself why. All right. So we talked about our sample workout. If I were going to do a sample training plan, kind of a big fan of a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. We talked about time, so we would do 40 seconds of work followed by 20 seconds of rest, as you can see specifically with any med wall or body weight exercise, followed by a little bit of jump rope at the end. We would go through this 3 rounds total. Okay, so what I've done here, I've picked a couple med wall exercises. Some of these were recommended certainly by some of the resources that you're going to see in the references at the conclusion of this. Some of these had to do with my own experience in terms of coaching, age group Dryland, age group swimming, seeing also what I had actually done as a swimmer, as an athlete back in the day, and what meets the guiding principles that we outlined earlier. Okay, so I'm going to have this presentation posted. That way you can click the links which are listed out for any of the exercises so you can see how they're performed. Much better off finding it online than trying to see me attempt these exercises on this little camera. Okay, so we have a goblet squat to forward press, a chopping lunge, a chest pass to the wall with a jump, burpees with our med wall. Okay. Overhead slam, lying flutter kicks with a toss, Russian twists, and then push-ups. So we chose 8 different exercises. Again, the way we would start out hypothetically, 40 seconds of work, 20 seconds to transition. Check out the videos, see how you like them. Again, the goal of the videos with each exercise chosen was to follow the guiding principles in the early part of this presentation. All right, functional training, functional movements, okay? If you don't have a med wall, not a problem. If you have bands, you can substitute a lot of these movements with bands. Just get creative. Again, different weights, backpack, weight vest, or even many of these, all of these actually can be regressed to your own body weight, focusing most on the mobility and flexibility. Okay, moving forward, I did have to throw in jump rope. I'm a huge fan of jump rope. Okay, it's one of my favorite exercises to do. You can do a ton with the jump rope with only one piece of equipment, which is your jump rope. Okay, and one thing that swimmers may not realize, okay, I'll read off of the slide right here. Jumping rope works your stabilizer muscles in your wrist, hand, forearm, and elbow besides the obvious lower body benefits. There's a great deal of variations that you can do with the jump rope to challenge your fitness and coordination. And swimming at its heart, as we talked about very, very early in this presentation, is a rhythmic activity. So the rhythm developed in jump rope, okay, challenging that coordination within the rhythm can certainly, to some degree, translate to our rhythm and coordination in swimming. All right. Conclusion. All right. What we want to do, again, this shutdown is unprecedented. For most of us, the pool to some degree has always been there. It has been an option whether we've been motivated to train or not. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have that option. Okay, so we certainly, number one, it makes us appreciate, and will make us appreciate once the pools are open back up, that time. But at the same time, we want to make every day count moving forward, particularly during this shutdown. All right, if you're watching this video, if you're looking for information on working out, chances are you're healthy enough and you're blessed enough to be able to work out right now, to be able to exercise, to be able to challenge yourself. Okay, so having that mindset of feeling lucky and gratitude of being able to work out, I think will first and foremost help us keep our sanity and certainly make the most out of our workouts. Number two, the workouts that we have, again, we don't have any other option in terms of pool training. So as opposed to being negative about, oh, I wish I could get in the pool, well, we have to make the most of the opportunities that we have. So having that opportunistic mindset, I think, is going to be much more motivating and much more effective when we work out. And finally, it's an opportunity, again, to train certain aspects that you might be lacking within your own general fitness, okay? I'm sure everyone has seen the movie Groundhog's Day. With Bill Murray, one of the parts that I think is really cool in it is when you see how he starts picking up different skills in the movie, and one of them is piano, right? Because he now has all this time, and it's something that he had always wanted to learn. So day by day, little by little, he improves in his piano skills to the point where he gets pretty darn good at it by the end of the movie. Same with different exercises, different movements, different mobility, what have you. Pick certain areas that you want to improve in. Take advantage of this time away from the pool, and attack it, get after it. Again, pistol squats for me are going to be huge. Trying to do different plyometric push-ups. Okay, challenge yourself as an athlete. All right. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, much of this is just my opinion. We tried to base it as much as we could off of different research, off of different resources. Happy to answer any questions here, the references that we did use for this presentation. Definitely a long one here. If you did stick through with us for the entirety, thank you all for watching. Hopefully this finds you safe and well. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out. Have an amazing day. Don't forget to smile, and we will see you soon.